What's the weirdest, scariest thing you've ever seen when at somebody else's house? I was 9 and my sister was 11. We were at my aunt's house staying the night. She had a weird as husband. He made us promise not tell our mom. He brought this huge pink floppy dildo thing out of the closet and chased us around. We told and never stayed the night again. Aunt divorced him later. 10 years later said uncle is in prison for child pornography and seducing school kids. When I was a kid, I went to my fiend's house for dinner. They ate straight butter. Like it was mashed potatoes. I was like 8 and didn't want to offend. So there I was. Eating ducking butter. My brain hurts just thinking about it. Edit. Thank you, kind Redditor. I went to a friend of a friend's house. And the whole place smelled like butter. It was like opening a tub of butter and sticking your nose in. I consider myself to have a strong stomach. But after less than 5 minutes inside I started to gag and feel lightheaded. To this day I have no idea what that odor was. It smelled like butter but no way it was that strong. Edit. You know how Pine Sol has a super strong smell that kinda burns your nose in a good way? Yeah, like that but in a bad way. Also, this was in some sketchy looking neighborhood in Jersey. I used to build houses. After a HO would move in, we would get a call about service issues, a knob loose, valve sticking, etc. Went into this single lady's house. She owned 2 Dobermans. The dogs had pissed on just about every corner in the house. She even left a giant turd mixed with her menstrual cycle in a toilet with the lid up. She knew we were coming in that day. What a pig. Full stop. Not flushing your sheet is one of the most mind-boggling things to me. Yeah, let's make sure the house gets nice wafts of that sheet. And also make sure that toilet gets super stained and dirty. Taking a fraction of a second to flush is way too demanding anyway. Not me. But my parents have told me this one. When they were first house shopping they ended up checking out this really nice house in the city. Real estate agent is showing them around the place and they get to a little side room. The agent is showing them around and my mom happens to glance into the adjacent living room. Right above the fireplace was a massive portrait of Adolf Hitler. The real estate agent was just like, oh yeah. That, and said it belonged to the previous owner. They didn't elaborate further. Edit. I get it. I missed the fur pun. RIP my inbox. Thank you for the shinies. : When I was in high school, I visited a friend at her house. She never told me her mom was a hoarder. I did everything I could to be polite and not call attention to the fact as we walked through narrow paths in the house. There were some rooms that were inaccessible because there was so much stuff. The weirdest part might have been that 6 people were living in this house like it was no big deal. Or maybe it was when the mom got back from running errands with a bag full of junk from a Halloween store and just added it to the piles. A neighbor of mine growing up had a house just like this. I was friends with their son but he never invited me over. One day I went and knocked on their door to see if he could come out and play and the mother said he was on an errand with his dad but would be right back and told me I could come in and wait. There was hoarded junk everywhere. It blew my little mind. I walked through a narrow passage behind her into the living room and sat down on the only chair that could be accessed. Random sheet was stacked 4-5 feet high everywhere. He was panicked when he got home. Took me outside immediately and made me swear not to tell anyone. Meth lab. At the mall before Christmas about 10 years ago when I was 19. Ran into a quasi friend from high school who I ran cross country with. He asked what's up and if I wanted to go back and play some vids. Get to his place. Dirty. But nothing crazy for 19. But have a super weird feeling. Play video games and drink beer for 30-45 minutes when I need to go to the bathroom. He tells me down the hall. I guess I opened the wrong door because instead of the bathroom, I found a meth lab. I was shocked to say the least and got the hell out of Dodge. Found out recently. He was hit and killed by a truck while on his bike going to work in a hit and run accident less than 2 weeks later. One day we got to my pal's house and for whatever reason we were talking about ghost And while walking up to his room he said, "I don't believe in ghosts," and a broom fell to the ground just in front of us, without any kind of breeze or anything moving it. About a year later, we entered his house and I saw the same broom resting on the wall, and I said, "Remember when you said that you didn't believe in ghosts and the broom fell off?" We laugh a sec to see the broom falling off again in front of us. We never talked about ghosts again in his house. My new BF and I went to take care of some pets at a friend's place. When we arrived, the place was trashed, like a tornado had gone through. Playing cards scattered everywhere, wrappers, receipts, small toys, etc. Then after we feed the cats we explore the rest of the house to see WTF. In the kitchen there was 3 different meals in various stages of preparation just left on the stove and counters. All the dishes were scattered, some with portions of pasta on them. Incredibly, the cats hadn't eaten a dart. We go to feed their chinchillas in the guest bath, and when we opened the door every surface in the bathroom was covered in chinchilla poop. Imagine little pellets, not wet poop. The guy was military and had just gone out of town with his family for training. We couldn't understand why he would leave his place like that. My friend's dad had a full-on nervous breakdown during dinner while I was over one night. He and his wife were having a relatively light disagreement about something, and then all of a sudden he starts losing his shit and crying uncontrollably. He got up and began pacing back and forth in the kitchen. I didn't see what happened after that because my friend's mom quickly shuffled us off to his room and made us lock the door. I was probably 9 or 10 at the time. I told my dad what happened the next day and he just kind made a face and that was it. A few years ago I asked him about it and my dad said he and my mom put the kibosh on our friendship. At least me going over to their house. Based on that event. No idea what actually was going on. When I was 12 I had a friend that owned several hamsters. Always like 6+ at a time. The house smelled horrible. Anyway, I spent the night one night and got up to get water at around midnight. I opened the freezer to get ice and it was filled with hamster carcasses. Like almost 2 dozen. I practically threw up. I never brought it up and never spent the night again. She moved away a couple months later. The weirdest was when I was visiting an old high school friend a few years ago. She had married this big a-hole and had 2 kids back to back. When you walked into their trailer it looked like they had this enormous flat screen TV that almost took up the whole living room wall. But when you walked down the hallway past the little girl's room, the back of the TV was sticking out into the girl's bedroom. It was one of those old obsolete TVs. They had cut a hole in the wall to make it look like a flat screen. There was only enough room for both of their baby beds on either side of the back of the TV. I'll never forget that. Who does that? Ha 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 ha. The most bizarre was a moose head with large antlers mounted high above the mantle. As I commented here some time ago, the moose head had amber glass eyes with electric light bulbs behind them. In the dark, it looked like the moose was angry and about to charge right off the wall. My best friend in elementary school got 2 bunnies one year for Christmas. A boy and a girl. The first time I slept over since she got them. We slept in the living room near the cage and they literally ducked through the whole night. She was just kind of like, yeah, they do that. I didn't sleep that night. My wife and I were touring a home we were considering buying. Old. Vacant a while. Fixer-upper. But lots of potential. Couldn't get around a smell that followed through the house. Got upstairs and the smell was worse. Opened up a bedroom door and there were strategically placed human turd piles all over the floor filling the room. Driest and oldest in the far corner. Relatively fresh closer to the door. We did not buy the house. My mom used to be a mental health advocate. Basically, she would take people with severe mental illnesses to and from doctor's appointments, court dates, bail them out when they got arrested, etc. Well, one of her clients would cheat in his windowsill and let it dry, then smoke it like crack. He said it gave him the strength he needed to fight the demons at night. He was the same one who would climb on top of his 3-story apartment building during thunderstorms to stop the moon and sun from fighting. Because the angels told him that was his job. He was never a danger to anyone else and was actually very nice. Just severely schizophrenic. My mom just finished telling me a story about how a week ago she went to her sister's house, my aunt, and she saw a shrine of my dad, my mom's ex-husband. My brother had a friend when we were growing up, and his father was a taxidermist. Went to their house once and they had a taxidermied leopard in the middle of their living room. Stayed at a friend's house when I was 5. His guest bathroom window looked down into his parents' bedroom window and I climbed onto the toilet to look out of it for some reason. Got a bird's eye view of his mom giving his dad a BJ. 5-year-old me was traumatized. Similar concept but my own house. My dad built an addition that included a master bathroom where our back patio used to be. The window in the guest bathroom used to look out onto the patio, but now looked right into the new shower. He didn't want to fill the window so he just put really thick, translucent glass in it instead. You could still see the vague shape of the person showering, but no details. My dad didn't understand how that might be weird for my friends when they came to visit. No matter how much I tried to explain it to him. They photoshopped themselves into pictures of them on vacation like boats and stuff and put them in picture frames. The biggest one was them photoshopped into a photo with a bammer that they ironed onto the wall. It was probably 5x5 feet. In high school a friend of mine invited me over to have dinner with his family. He was always a little eccentric, but I didn't think I would find anything weird in his house, since his parents always seemed normal to me. It turns out his family had this tradition of keeping every pet they ever had as taxidermy. It really shocked me seeing a room full of stuffed cats and dogs. Went to her house for the first time and realized that all the hung frames in her house still had the stock images in them. LMAO. This reminds me of my aunt. She got a picture frame as a present from someone, and she said the family in the stock picture looked so perfect and happy she didn't have the heart to take it out. So she just had a random family in a nice frame mixed in with all her other family photos. She was hilarious. R.I.P. Aunt Pam. I was a delivery driver and went on a delivery to a house pretty far out into the country. The woman that answered the door was probably mid-40s and only had lingerie on. She asked me to come inside since she forgot her wallet and it was cold outside. Then talked about how her husband usually pays but he's not here. Oh, and I forgot to mention. As soon as I stepped inside my eyes were assaulted with the mounted heads of every game animal I could think of. Not one space was left on their walls. And directly to the right of the door was a full taxidermied mountain lion. I noped the duck out of there as soon as I got the cash. I was on a gymnastics team when I was 9 until 14 and went to a fellow team member's house to have a sleepover one Friday or Sat night. Her much older father played the organ the entire night as if we needed a musical soundtrack to our activities. Sometimes it was sad music but much of it was polka music and we ended up in the room with him doing the polka while he played. I bought a house to flip from a guy who was a hoarder. It was like nothing I had ever seen. We filled up 4 20-foot dumpsters just with his belonging he left behind. The neighbor said he had lived in that house for almost 5 years without water or power. There were hundreds and hundreds cups with urine and shit in them. Most were bojangles and I couldn't eat there for a while after that. Was a total nightmare. Good news is after all that we remodeled the house and it looked great again. My friend's half-brother who lived under his bed. I'm pretty sure that it was just a dream. And the X-Files episode Home probably gave me the nightmare. But it felt so real. For some reason I just got this overwhelming feeling of dread when I looked under the bed. A few years back, my friend would often house sit for this family at her church. She always asked me to stay with her there because I didn't like the house. As the house had 350 some clowns in it. We always slept in the living room because all of the bedrooms had giant clown figurines. It was awful. I woke up on the couch of my friend's house to the sheriff telling my friend that his mother was killed the night before. He made a sickening, terrible cry and collapsed. He was a bastard and just found out that he lost his only parent at 14. Terrible. Super late. But I'll add mine to the mix. When I was about 12 I had a sleepover at a friend's house. Her aunt, uncle, and cousins were there for a visit as well. We kept to ourselves mostly. But when we went to bed my friend locked her bedroom door. When I asked her why she said her little cousin sleepwalks and comes in sometimes at night and it was annoying. Okay. No big deal. That night I had a really hard time sleeping. I'm laying there wide awake around 2 AM and the doorknob turns. Whoever was on the other side tried again and rattled the doorknob a few times. Then gave up. I figured it was the little cousin and eventually fell asleep. The next day the mom decides she should tell my mom that her brother, the uncle, was visiting because he'd just gotten out of jail for molesting a 10-year-old girl and they were looking for a new home. Needless to say, I never had a sleepover over there again. Edited to clarify. I was at a pretty big sleepover in elementary school, think 15-20 10-year-old girls, and we were all pretty much asleep when the host's parents started getting into an argument in the other room. It got more and more heated until the dad literally grabbed the mom by the throat and held her above the ground while choking and screaming at her. I grabbed a house phone and got picked up immediately because I could not handle being there after that. I know a few other girls who were still awake ended up leaving too. I was at my aunt's house and she was a practicing Hindu. So she had a little area with dais, pictures and writings, and every now and again the dais would become unlit. So she would give me a candle and I would walk into the area and light it. Right by the dais there was a statue with out of arms, and while I was lighting it, on the corner of my eye I saw the hands as clear as day change position. It went right from the top at its shoulder to its lap. I never walked so fast in my life to get out of there. I was about 10 and staying with a friend. We were completely asleep when her mom and dad came in and woke us up and calmly said we were all going outside now. It was summer, so it wasn't too cold or anything. We all went outside, her 3 older teenage siblings and her parents and the 2 of us, but it was the middle of the night. So it was extremely strange. Then the GOM squad showed up. Turns out, there was a grenade with a pin still in it from WWII in their garage. My friend's dad would stay up super late cleaning and organizing his late father's belongings when he came across it one night. My parents ended up coming to pick me up a short time later and the GOM squad took the grenade. I believe. They had pet piranhas and I was sleeping over there. One of the piranhas literally jumped out of the tank and started flopping on the ground. I thought that piranhas were some kind of death machine animal at the time, so I started freaking the duck out. Eventually they got it back in the tank. But yeah, I didn't get much sleep that night. I was having a sleepover at my friend's house and when we decided to sleep I lay down in my sleeping bag. I looked up and there was a massive hole in the roof in the middle of the living room. I had a friend back in high school whose family owned lots of guns, rifles, shotguns, pistols, and had them lying all over the house along with live ammunition. I'm talking like a borderline hoarder house where the place was crazy cluttered. But interspersed with the regular household items were numerous weapons leaning against various walls or on shelves. And live ammunition looking like it was just swept towards the walls after having been dropped or dumped out. I recall his dad saying something to the effect of just be careful not to start a fire, cause this place will go up.